this might be like a controversial opinion, but I
Oh,
think
we love
on the
those.
whole, tools like ChatGPT are in the next 3 to 5 years net negative.
Ooh, why do you think that?
I think that the population that actually use it in a positive, reinforcing way for their own learning and understanding, I think they're the minority.
Hey, new friends, I'm Caitlin Sapir. You're listening to AI and Anxious, where professionals spill their AI secrets and struggles. I'm joined by Dave Allie, an absolute software engineering and entrepreneurial weapon. He is the co-founder and CTO at ViziBuild, a quality management SaaS solution giving the construction industry unrivaled insights into project progress. Hopefully I sold that well. Dave and I met through an online Dungeons and Dragons campaign many years ago, and both share a love and affinity for tech, but may have differing opinions on AI, which I'm keen to chat about in this episode. So, to kick things off, Dave, if you could explain what solution you built with AI to win the Tanda hackathon a few years ago, and where you're at now with using AI in your daily workflow, if at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Caitlin.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
we're a little bit far from D&D, but what is software but a bunch of people role playing, really?
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
yeah. So a couple of years ago, myself and someone I worked with at the time, we were involved in a little hackathon that focused on workplace innovation. And one of the things we were playing with when we did that was like an AI tool. Buzzword. Congratulations, everyone's building AI tools, but we
Mm,
figured we could build something that's actually reasonably valuable.
mm,
And the big thing is separating what's valuable versus like what actually catches people's attention, because I feel like there's a lot of that secondary stuff and
mm,
not as much of the value stuff. So
mm.
we decided to build basically a sentiment cross categorization tool for reviews on GitHub. So when developers review each other's code, they typically leave suggestions or even just comments of approval across it.
Yeah, or
And
insults on
yeah,
their
or
code.
insults. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, like hit them with a couple of skull emojis and then go oof, and then see what happens. So yeah, we decided
Yep.
to like, it's pretty hard for a manager to understand at a low level how an employee is doing without going through all that data themselves. So
Mm,
we built this tool not just to track when people were underperforming, but the change in their performance over time.
mm,
So, oh, this junior is actually receiving a lot of comments about their code cleanliness or the lack of testing. And it's been pretty bad now, but that might help us shape some training for the team or for that individual. And then over
mm,
time, we hope to see that feedback kind of decrease and
mm.
fade away. So I ran it across our company's comments on GitHub, and there was some interesting like little bits of insight, but it was pretty raw tool. Like we built it over a weekend, so you can
Mm.
imagine that what we built wasn't perfect, but it
Yep.
showed kind of the potential and value of that thing over time, which
Yep.
was
Yep.
definitely a lot of fun to build. Yeah.
And you were using the ChatGPT API, I think.
Yeah. We decided to use the ChatGPT API, but a lot of it we were using it for was just, hey, this is the comment, and these are like 20 possible things we're thinking about right now. Give me the
Mm,
category that this comment represents,
mm,
and give some intent, and try to structure that data that returned from the API in a reasonably clean way.
mm.
Which back when we were doing this, there weren't as many controls in place that allowed you to enforce the return shape of that data.
Yep.
So we would get back occasionally some weird gobbledygook and have to either discard it or hope the best that it was going to fit within our structures, so that we could
Mm,
actually represent that on dashboards and graphs and tooling that we
mm.
put in front of the manager in this
Yeah,
case.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. To have like a quick snapshot. That's cool. Can you actually explain, because the audience that we have is mainly non-coders, but like white collar professionals. So can you explain, the differences between using the API and the user interface, like just in terms of any additional
Yeah,
usability
absolutely.
or
Yeah.
functionality? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think fundamentally, probably the best way to think about this at a starting place is, I like to think of a lot of the existing tools like that you think of when you think of like AI chatbot, so
Mm,
ChatGPT, Claude, all those existing
mm,
LLM models,
mm.
as like a level one construct or an L1 thing. And on top of that, we level up. So you end up building tools on top of those tools, and then
Yeah, yeah.
tools on top of those tools. And the way people do that is by using these APIs that allow them to effectively ask those same questions of ChatGPT, but put it behind a layer of their application. So as an example, we have a bit of like some AI tooling in our product at the moment, and it allows us to generate domain-specific bits of data that are within like our construction product, but we're still using ChatGPT under the hood to generate that. So we call out to the API and we say, hey, this is the scenario. And we typically, like you would for a more consistent prompting situation where you come up with like either a brief or a prompt, system prompt, and then you give like some kind of user-filled data, and then you ask for like some format out the back end of it. And that might be, hey, listen, this is the world as we know it. I'm going to suggest how to build a construction waterproofing checklist, and these are the things you might need to know about. Yeah, which we all need. And then you might put some information the user might have provided as part of their prompt as well and inject that in. And then you might say, hey, I want this in a very specific format that I know about and you're going to give me, so that I can extract all the relevant bits of information and show it in my tooling. So that's how like typically a lot of those AI-based tools work. And that's kind of like that L1 thing. And that looks like, so that's, I guess, L2 at this point. If L1 is ChatGPT, L2 is like level 2 is those applications building on top of ChatGPT directly. So that's the stuff that we're doing. It might be more stuff like just content generation tools or automated chatbots for customer requests. Yeah. You might have an automated chatbot in the bottom right-hand corner of your website. Yeah. That's what I think of as like L2. And then even on top of that, you can do either more multimodal stuff or tie a couple of those things together. And you might have like an AI Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master or like a full-on virtual assistant, right? And that requires them to sort of tie together with additional logic all those individual pieces that you're putting together. But from a developer's perspective, it is a lot of like raw tooling, and it's a little bit scary because people get really attached to the idea of buzzwords around AI and like, oh, let's build it with AI. And then you say, what do you mean by that? And they say, I don't know, you'll just figure it out with AI, right?
It's just
AI. And it's the same thing that I'm sure you would face too. It's just like, oh, it's a great problem. Let's just solve it with AI. It's like, well, we need to break it down and actually figure out what that means. And that's more important in the like programming world than even in just a regular interface world, because we need to codify it. We need to put it into a repeatable format. So really being precise on what you actually want to do with the AI tooling is very important when you start to talk about APIs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, working with, obviously it's like a non-deterministic model. So, I mean, AI isn't really applicable when you want a pretty consistent output, like a rule-based output. And then I think that's where people start to kind of get annoyed, you know, because they'll put in the same prompt. They can put in the same prompt a couple of times or in the same context window or chat, and then actually get different outputs without understanding that that's actually what is expected behavior.
Do you think that people are changing their opinion on that though? I feel like as a consumer, just a regular consumer of AI, I now expect that. And even if someone has an AI tool and things show up differently, I'll just like click the button again. Maybe I like know too much about it.
Yeah, I think people who understand it and accept that is how it works kind of under the hood, then yes, that it's like there's kind of like two pathways that people go down. Either they expect it and therefore just keep iterating or trying different things, and that's kind of the experimental person who's accepting of the way that AI behaves. And then there's the other person who tries it a couple of times, and because they get different outputs, they never use it again.
Just become so frustrated and leave immediately.
Yeah, and then they start hanging out front of train stations with signs saying that AI is a scam and that, you know...
Yeah, I guess you can split the world in two, right? When I enter a prompt and it comes back with like things I don't expect, I think, damn, I'm the idiot here. But I guess there's the other situation where people are like, the computer doesn't understand, it can't read my mind.
Yeah, for sure. So I do find that people are kind of in those two camps. But yes, certainly. I think it's interesting as, I suppose, a tool that it has leveled the playing field for some people. And then it's totally disadvantaging. Is that a word?
Disadvantaging?
I don't think it is.
I don't know.
people who aren't using
complete
it,
others. Yeah, I mean,
then they are like going to not necessarily fall behind, but they're just not, they're not making their lives potentially easier.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think even in the camp of people that do use it, there is a huge, huge like spectrum.
Totally.
And
There's a massive spectrum.
yeah, and that's the part
Every
that kind of
person
makes me a little bit anxious, because on one side of things,
I
there's
know.
like very good uses, and other side of things, people are using it not the way
Definitely.
I think they should.
Yeah. Because there is such a difference in every person's use of AI. Like, you could talk to 10 different people and they would have such insanely variant degrees of how much they use AI, how well they use AI, how well they understand AI. And this has been a thing for a long time. I mean, technology itself, it's like we're in the tech bubble. So we have a natural understanding and curiosity about AI, and probably some ability to persevere. We expect that. Whereas others are just trying to understand it and don't feel like it lives up to their expectations, but they're literally just not using it in a way that it's supposed to be
Totally, yeah.
used.
And this might be like a controversial opinion, but
Ooh,
I think
we love those.
on the whole, tools like ChatGPT are in the next 3 to 5 years net negative.
Ooh, why do you think that?
I think that the population that actually use it in a positive, like reinforcing way for their own learning and understanding, I think they're the minority. And there are these huge group of people that, in my mind, are using it as a massive crutch, and they're losing the ability to research, to learn, to form opinions, because they offload that responsibility to the AI, and they keep doing this over and over and over again. And at some point, I feel like we're going to end up like we're in the movie Idiocracy, where everyone's just like, oh, someone said something smart once, like, holy shit, it's happening.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
So, tracing back to original ideas, because everything's just AI generated, therefore having an original, authentic idea is going to be actually...
And it's so easy, right? You just type in
crazy.
a question and suddenly there's an answer. And it gets me thinking that AI, depending on how you look at it, especially at that ChatGPT prompting, summarization, like ideation tooling layer, it can be either like fast food or like a treadmill,
Right.
It can be one of those two things. It can be a thing that you just grab for and it's easy and people have made it and it's really quite an innovation. Fast food, I'm sure, is an innovation. And it's great, right? Like, it has value, but people just overconsume and they just lose the ability to cook, to have a balanced diet and everything. But if you use it like a treadmill, it's something that can help you train and be better and refine your thinking and actually do a better job. But my concern is there's no training in the world to get people to think in that aspect. And I fear that people's natural idea is to pull toward the most productive thing at that point in time. And it's a local...
But also the easiest thing, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we're all
just
just looking for A to B. That's just how, a lot of the use of AI has so many interesting implications in human psychology. It's like things we already knew were, already existed in the world. Like, people behave the way that they behave. They are the people that they are. It's just like when you give them a particular tool like AI, they're going to use it in the way that they generally interact with the world.
I think the scary thing to me is I think AI erodes who they are more than it builds them up.
Interesting. So you don't think it is this is a good way, because I do have, there are a lot of different opinions on this. I think potentially our opinions are different, but that's fine.
Makes for a good discussion.
It does. I think that AI used in the right way, I mean, maybe I do agree with you, the treadmill analogy. Yes, when it's used like that, when it's used to make you super, make you enhance you, not even augment. I know I use the word augment, but I think enhance is probably a better word. And when you're able to use AI in that way, then you are just becoming, I don't want to use the word synergy because it's disgusting, but
one with the machine.
One with the machine, get close to the metal.
I fully agree. I think that if using the
But you
right
don't
way,
think people are
it is.
using it like that? Like,
I don't think
can you
people
give
are.
me an example of like what is like a good example of the treadmill use
Yep,
case, and
sure.
then like the
Yeah,
junk food thing, just
yeah,
to
sure.
like
I'll start with the
contextualize
junk
it?
food one because I feel like that's like come up a lot in the news and stuff like that, and I think it's actually
Mm,
quite relevant to younger groups today as well, and also
mm.
people in full-time roles.
The
But
kids.
the kids, right? The kids are getting AI to write their essays for them. They're getting it
Right.
to like outline all their relevant bits of information. All the slop that's on
Yes.
the internet is
So much
just
slop.
AI generated slop, right? That's not
Mm,
valuable. People are doing it because they don't want to have their own internal thought. They just
mm.
want the AI to create content they can post. So the
Right.
slop, the essays writing, stuff like that. For professionals, I think it manifests as people unwilling to learn and effectively lean on AI to solve their problems before they understand the underlying issue. And for me in tech, that just means people don't do the work to understand the fundamentals to build up a solid context base to be able to
Right.
do more progressive thinking, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like
And so like,
shortcutting, I
yeah,
suppose. And
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then on the treadmill side, I think good examples are, let's say you want to learn about a new topic, but you have no idea where to start. Great. Well,
Mm,
like AI can help me understand where that is. It can save you a lot of time doing weird little bits of round that topic discovery and take you
mm,
right into the heart of it, let's say. Or
mm,
thinking back to that work example, it might put you on the path of discovering where the solution is, but you're still actually going through those stages to understand what the answer is. But it avoids you, it doesn't let you like kind of go off on a tangent and go down rabbit
mm,
holes you wouldn't need to. So
mm.
it's like, it's a fine line, right? And I think
Okay.
it's something that's going to become more and more difficult to assess as people become more and more like AI native, I guess.
Mm,
But I think there needs to be some kind of educational piece that we
right.
train people in to teach them how to use it well, I guess healthily.
Yeah. Well, using it in a way that is not going to rot their brains and
Yeah,
is more ethical. So yeah, I agree. I mean, as an AI educator and someone with a course out, uh, that definitely helps. But yes, no, I agree. And it'll be interesting to see. I think it is that education piece because yeah, anyone can obviously it's such a low barrier to entry. You literally make a ChatGPT or a Claude account or whatever account it might be, and then you go from there and there's just absolutely no introductory foundational knowledge or guidance as to how to use it so that yeah, in a few years time you're not completely reliant
yeah,
on the AI too, because that just takes the whole humanity out. I mean,
totally.
even though I love technology and obviously AI is just an amazing thing that we as humans have created, I don't want us to lose our humanity in the process of technology being integrated into our lives. I'm a big believer in the duality of being human and using
Yeah,
technology, not okay, let's end up in this dystopian future. Like, another movie that comes to mind for me is Wall-E.
yeah.
How all the
Just strapped to our chairs.
just strapped to our chairs, or that terrible movie, sorry, Bruce Willis, Surrogates,
Oh, surrogates. Yeah,
awful.
yeah. But
Which
yeah, this is quite a pessimistic worldview, right, that we're talking about right now. But I
right,
guess if we don't think about it and we don't talk about it, we are never going to
yes,
prevent it. And we talked a little bit before. It's just, it
for
seems
sure.
to be the natural tendency, at least in my mind, of people
Yeah,
to gravitate toward that
yeah,
ease of use thing.
yeah,
And I kind of fear that all these like core skills about original thought, like you mentioned, they're going to become specialties. Like there's going to be someone whose
mm,
job it is to be an original thinker. And it's like
right,
insane,
right,
right? Like it's a crazy idea, but it's a
yes,
future I could see if we don't at least try to curb some of it.
yeah,
Alternatively, I mean, that's like the most negative view. And alternatively, like there's obviously the most positive view too, where
mm,
AI is consistent enhancement and
mm,
integrates well into society and people's lives and stuff.
yeah,
But people that are writing these tools for AI, that's the vision they're pitching. But the more people they have using it like a fast food,
of
that's where the money
course,
is, right?
exactly.
That's where the use is. So there's this
Exactly.
weird
So they don't
duality
really
there.
have, yeah, they don't have any incentive to be able to promote the ethical use. It's kind of like, Apple and other smartphone companies bringing in the screen time monitoring and actually encouraging, people to kind of not use it as much. I think we might see something like that in the AI space potentially in the future.
I hope so. Yeah.
But I think
I think it's quite noble, the screen time thing. It's
me
it's
too.
a really good idea. But I think you need to be a certain size to be able to take the hit on people's perception of
usage.
you if you're actively, or maybe it actually does decrease usage, screen time. I don't know how the internal numbers, but as Apple, they have to be more concerned about the long-term brand I guess, awareness and brand positioning versus the loss of potential users. I just don't think with AI, but I very much hope that there's like an AI diet monitor.
Yeah. That would be good. I'd like to see actually more reports on what people are using the models for. I know that there are some reports on the use cases, but I actually would like to get more nuanced data, like to the level of very specific prompting, how often people are using AI each day, how often they're using it for tasks in their role or in their personal life. But I think for me, I do the junk food stuff sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you. I like a little AI treat.
Hey,
but
a
mostly,
little AI treat never hurt anyone, right? Just a little bit though.
Just a little bit, yeah. But the treadmill, I definitely use the treadmill a lot more because I feel really enhanced and enabled by AI, because I'm a person who definitely has some issues staying on track and staying focused on a task, as well being a solo founder for a while, having that back and forth mini employee and like team of agents that I use now has genuinely worked with my weaknesses as a leader and an engineer too. Like obviously you're a lot more experienced than I am, but even just having a junior understanding of software engineering, it has meant that I can actually write code without throwing my laptop out the window, because the debugging and the guidance, and I also get it to teach me while I'm coding too. I'm not just saying, hey, write me code, because that's the junk food version. You go, write me code for this application, and you might get something that could build a very rudimentary, sticks and twigs solution. But for me, it's like I'm using it, then I'm getting it to explain to me why certain parts aren't working. And so then I'm actually being trained more as an engineer while I'm using the tool. And that's amazing, because I feel like I just have a certain way that my brain works. And it's probably because I'm autistic.
Spicy brain.
Spicy brain, very spicy brain. So just really, it's hard for me to find someone who can teach me something in a way that I understand, to keep my attention, keep my focus. That's really difficult for me. And so that was one of the reasons why I kind of went more into the entrepreneur space and not so much as an engineer, because I really struggled with those particular elements. But AI has meant that I can actually get back in there and not have to find a very specific teacher to teach me. So I think that's been massive.
So interesting. Yeah, the part you mentioned there on having a specific teacher, right, for yourself, and having almost a curated learning style, like a curated teachings that fit your learning style is something that I think AI is so good at. And like I still use it all the time as well. And I'll be like, hey, I don't understand this. Tell me more about this one individual thing. I'm like, no, go into more detail, or no, go higher level. It's like having a mentor right next to you, right? If you use it well. The thing is with the junk food stuff as well, it's to add another layer to it. It's one person's junk food is another person's like, I don't know. I need to think of another way to think about this analogy. Maybe it's like a little treat, a little snack. Because for me, if I want to do a bunch of boilerplate code that I know how it works already, I don't want to spend the time to do it. I know what it's going to look like at the end. I know why all those things happen. And so having AI do it for me is great. But if someone way more junior than me did the exact same thing,
you could have created yourself, I think that's the difference. Yeah. You could have created it yourself. You know how to do it, but you just know that in terms of the time that it takes, it's faster. Therefore, that's okay. Totally. It's kind of like having a protein shake, right? Yeah. So you don't have time for a meal, but it's still it's still going to give you some boost, but you can't use that as a substitute for
so we've got fast food, protein shake, and treadmill. I like it.
Treadmill,
I agree, because the tricky thing is though that everyone that's sort of coming up and using AI as a learning tool, it's difficult to understand whether that thing you're about to do is it junk food or is it a protein shake, right? Is that thing that you're about to ask it to do, is that something you could have done yourself and you're using it as an enhancement tool? Or is this forcing you or allowing you to skip the learning aspect of it and completely palm off that responsibility to the AI?
Yes. I think if you unplug the AI from your workflow and it doesn't work at all, that's where you may have a problem. But I mean, in saying that, then we can go into this whole other rabbit hole of process automation. Like, process automation is actually separate from AI. Like, automating processes has existed for a long time and you don't need AI to do that. I think people are still figuring out where it's best placed in a workflow and if it's actually adding to their role and their just general human-like skills.
Yeah, agree. Yeah. And to put a little bow on this, I guess, we're reaching the point now where it's very, very topical. We're reaching a point now where AI is just so accessible that the next step in my mind isn't necessarily better versions of this tool. It's more conscious versions of these tools. Ooh. It's ways for people to actually use it properly and not just because it's exciting and there and their first point of call. So I hope that the next step that we see is more about these tools on top of these large language models that can guide us a little bit more in good use of these tools.
Nice. So then you must tell me, as we come towards the end of this thrilling episode, what's one thing you're using AI for in an impactful way in your life today? And what's one problem you wish you could solve with AI? Also, this is your question. I just want everyone to know that.
I was about to comment on how good your question was, and then you really revealed pull back the curtain a little bit too much there. I mean, I'm an answer for you, but I'd love to hear your answer as well. So maybe you think about it as we're going. I think for me, the thing I use it for today is stuff we've kind of already been talking about. I use it in my daily workflow for coding. I use Copilot on the daily to help me be faster. And I would say probably makes me 30 to 40% faster in that aspect of my job, just alone. So that and things like deep diving on issues. So in software engineering, sometimes you'll just get a random error thrown up with a whole bunch of odd context that you have no idea how to parse properly. And sometimes I'll just copy and paste that whole thing into ChatGPT and it will tell me, hey, this is where you should be looking and this is why. Because this line showed up here, you can now know that it's like this thing. And so it helps me build the context for understanding that issue in the future, but also helps me solve it where I could have spent hours before trying to dive into it. So that's something I use today. That's quite impactful for me.
Yeah.
And one thing I wish I could solve with AI, it's probably, I wish I had like an AI agent that would harass me nonstop to go and exercise. Like at the right time during the day that it's going to be most impactful for me to hear that information. So like, oh, you're about to sit down on the couch. Wait, hang on. Maybe you should, while you're still moving, go out and go to the gym instead or go for a run. But have it be a little bit more context aware of my life as opposed to just like a scheduled alarm or message that shows up on my phone. Some sort of life aware context training AI tool. What about you?
Mate, that's so possible because I kind of use that, but in a different way. So one thing I really like about AI is, you mentioned earlier multimodality. So beyond text is essentially how I describe it. So you think voice and image and video and all that jazz. I use basically I've built this little system where I use a real-time voice agent to call people on my behalf. So there's heaps of different use cases I use it for. I mean, honestly,
I think you have told me about this one before. I love it.
I use lots of different solutions, but for example, a quick one would just be like, instead of me sitting on the phone to the ATO for 2 hours, I have an agent that can actually speak on my behalf, and I'll probably get reported and blocked at some point, but that's okay.
I really wish I had your agent, but in my voice today, I spent an hour on a call with Apple support today. It was infuriating.
Yeah, see that, basically phone calls, because again, if we're coming back to the example of how to use AI that enhances you, I really don't like waiting on the phone. I really don't like talking on the phone. I'm a bit of a hermit. So using that tool. Also, I've now got it to look at my calendar and call me. like 10 minutes before I have a meeting, because without a shadow of a doubt, without fail, even though I've looked at my calendar like 10 times, I will just somehow lose that existence of that
That's
meeting.
incredible.
And then I'll just
I
go
love
off
it.
and do something. And literally just calls me. It's like, you've got a meeting in 10 minutes. and here's the like the summary of what you need to know. And here's the person's LinkedIn. And
Oh, that's
like,
great.
yeah,
So you
it's
get
kind
like a
of
little
like
info dump prior to the meeting.
yeah,
What did it
it's
say
like I
about me?
have Dave Alley.
Here's that guy again. He
crazy
keeps talking to you weirdly. Like, you gotta be on a podcast with him. Make sure you wrap it up quick.
To be fair, I didn't have you in my calendar, so I didn't actually get one for you. Sorry, but yeah, that's something, because again, I know that that's what I'm like. I can be very forgetful. Unfortunately, I have lots of strengths. I want to make that clear that I have other good things.
That was never in doubt.
Yeah, but it's just I forget things all the time, and I don't really like talking to people over the phone. Those are two things that really make me sad.
And what about one thing you could solve if you had all the power in the world?
Wish that I can solve. Like, I play with these tools all the time, so it's kind of hard to say what's one thing I wish I could solve, because there's a lot of use cases that I'm already solving for myself. But I'm very excited for AI and robotics in the home. I know that the Tesla robot, I know it's a laugh.
Yeah, that was a bit of a moment,
I know it's
wasn't it?
weird. Kim Kardashian has one. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. But again, it just comes down to really basic life things that I really, really hate doing. So yeah, if we could get an AI robot that could do the dishes and hang out my clothes and things like that. Like, I find it...
You're rapidly moving toward the Wall-E-verse very quickly here.
No, but it's just like, what is the point of me standing outside for 10 minutes, hanging out... Like, my
Great
friend
time
was
to listen
saying...
to a podcast, if you ask me.
No.
Maybe another episode of AI and Anxious.
I'd rather be doing yoga or meditating or just literally it reduces my energy levels, my mana bars, you know? I just really don't like doing it. And my friend said the other day, isn't it funny that probably 3 years of your life is spent doing washing? And when he said that, I thought,
That's not funny. That's not funny.
That's not funny at all. I hate that. Because, yeah, it's like maybe however many minutes every day, but you add that up over a lifetime. And that's a whole startup I could have run and created and
I think you
contributed
should,
to the world, you know?
If you had one aspiring agent in your life to be able to get that done, I think it's Wallace and Gromit. I think you need the wake
I
up
know.
system from Wallace and Gromit, and that's probably enough.
I know. So that, yeah, essentially if something could get me up in the morning, turn my bed up, put me in clothes,
Make
put
you a
me in the
jam
shower,
Yeah.
like make me jam toast, that would be amazing. Any of those tasks, that's when I know that
You've made it.
that I've made it. That's right. Love it. Thanks, Dave.
Well, thanks for talking.
Yeah, no,
It
that was
really interesting. I think the whole
Yeah,
AI thing is going to be interesting to watch as we go throughout 2025 and obviously
I know.
beyond. But I will wait with bated breath, and I'm sure we will have this conversation again at a pub sometime.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that you did ask me off this episode why I started the podcast. There's many reasons, but I actually think the main reason is because this is such a crazy time in history. I'm excited to document what's happening at this point in time, how we're feeling about AI, and be able to look back on this in 5 years and see kind of how close we got to the predictions, or if the things we talked about here have now progressed extremely in the future. Like, I think that's really interesting to have this time capsule in a way and go through the journey together. I think that's probably the thing that excites me about having a podcast on this topic. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Caitlin. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Dave, for hosting this podcast.
Well, I feel like I'm basically a co-host at this point.
Yeah. No, it was so good. Really good to chat. Yeah, people should check out ViziBuild. It's a very, very cool piece of software, and they made a barbershop quartet ad recently to promote the software, which was...
That was a lot of fun to...
Probably the best thing I've ever seen.
See out there in the wild. If you're interested in us, you can check us out on LinkedIn and stuff, but we're just basically a SaaS company for construction.
Thanks. I don't know how to wrap up a podcast. But thanks, Dave. And see you later, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
What are we saying to each other?
Seems they're trying to teach us a basic tonal vocabulary.
It's the first day of school, fellas.